Man, Shorty's bad. I'd crack open a Bible, son. Crack open a Bible, son.
All right, and we're back. This time with a requested video for the different translations of the English Bible, right? And I want to start off by saying the best translation is whatever translation gets you to actually read the Bible, right? With the caveat it actually being the Bible and not like the Mormon Bible, for example, which teaches that Jesus and Satan are both brothers, right? So as long as it's the Bible, I'm pretty happy that you're reading the Bible. But I mean, obviously I have preferences on them, so I'll be going over them in this video. Um, Before we get into the actual rankings, I want to talk about the different types of translations, right? We have word to word translation, thought for thought, and paraphrasing. It goes green, yellow, and red, and that's kind of my opinion too. Word for word, good. Thought for thought, and paraphrasing, you should just stay away from. Word for words are the closest to the interlinear, which is essentially basically just the original Greek or Hebrew, right? If it's New Testament, it's Greek or Hebrew. If it's Old Testament, it's Hebrew. And you can see these are the words here. And if you click the words themselves, right, or like above it, it'll tell you like what the word is, how it's used, all this good stuff, right? So this is the most literal, and these are some translations here. This is word to word, thought for thought, and the message. Word to word. Paul, a slave of Jesus Christ, called as an apostle, having been set apart for the gospel, right? Romans, from thought for thought. Paul, a servant of Jesus Christ, called to be apostle, right? So these are pretty similar, except one says servant, one says slave. And the message adds a bunch of extra stuff, right? Um, I prefer it being closest to the original source, right? And if we go back to here, right, this is the basically word for word. The word doulos here, I hope I pronounced that right, means someone who belongs to another, a bond slaves without any ownership rights of their own, right? So this word is kind of used. I mean, it's not a good word to use, but it shows here that believers who willingly live under Christ's authority, right? So it's used in a good context. The reason why NIV and other translations will use servant instead of bond slave or slave is because the word slave has a really bad connotation to it, thanks to like American history. Well, not just American history, but in general, right? But I would prefer to get my translations closest to the source. Um, but yeah, now that we have like the framework out the way, I'm gonna talk about the most popular Bible verses or Bible translations. Starting with the KJV. And I've actually read KJV, New KJV, ESV, a little bit of NIV and LSB so far. All the others I haven't read, but um, these ones I have like the most to talk about. Starting with KJV. I'm gonna put this in. I prefer you to read a different one. And so KJV is actually closer on the word for word. But the problem I have with the KJV is uh, it actually doesn't age well in the sense that a lot of the words back when in the 1600s, they're used in different contexts today. But if you read the words, you'll assume the context is today's context. I'll give an example. The word Sheol or hell is translated, or the word hell meant back in the 1600s, just meant like grave, right? So if you die, you go to the grave, you go to hell, you go to Sheol, right? It's all kind of the same thing. And we see this in the interlinear, right? Sheol here. But when it comes to the King James, right, it doesn't always like properly show. Oh, we'll see here too, like grave, hell, pit. Um, when you read hell today in today's context, hell has a completely different meaning, right? Hell means burning, like the second death, fire, and demons and all that stuff. But back then, hell simply just meant, you know, where you go when you die. Everybody goes to hell when you die, right? So I think King James is not a bad translation, but it doesn't age well. So if I can find it. For that, I prefer you read a different one. And this is also where I believe that a lot of like faulty theology comes from. Because if you read, this is what I did. I can speak from experience. I read King James version, and I would see certain verses talk about hell, and I'm like, oh, people are in hell right now, so people are burning in hell right now. But then um, when I started studying the Bible more and I changed translations, I realized there's nobody in hell yet until Judgment Day. So that's why King James would be here. New King James also goes here for the same reason. If I can move it. But I put it a little above because it does help. They do kind of update it a little bit, and I do like the King James version for like the poetry and stuff. If you have like the historical context for King James, it probably would go into not bad. Same with New King James, but for now, both of them go here. ESV goes into not bad. It's a closer to word translation, and it was my third time reading. Um, I liked it. I didn't really have anything issues with it. So yeah, for now. And again, this is a subject to change, right? Maybe in a year, if you ask me later, these can rise and fall, and it's also my opinion. So don't take it too seriously. NIV. So this might be my most controversial one of them, but NIV is one of the most popular. I think it's like number one popular. Let me look up Bible translations popularity. Probably should have done this before, but I think it's one of the most popular. Yeah, NIV is the top selling, right? And I'm gonna put it in. Please don't read this. Actually, no. I prefer you read another. It's not like paraphrase, but I don't like NIV, and this is just solely because of how they translate Deuteronomy 22 to 29, right? Deuteronomy 22, in verse 28, it says that if a man rapes a virgin, then he needs to marry her and pay her father, right? Um, I'm not gonna get into the nitty gritty in this video because it's kind of outside the scope, but essentially, this is a bad translation. Remember, we can go to the original words, right? And this is the word in verse 25 that talks about rape, right? Which means to seize, be strong, to bind, restrain, conquer. And then this is the word that uses in verse 28 to manipulate, seize. There's a reason why all the Bible verses or translations that translate as rape typically are thought for thought or paraphrase. Because if we look in the preceding context, uh, how we know it's rape is if she cries out in the country but nobody hears them, then it's rape, right? But here is none of that, and we see the same thing later on with Jesus and a woman in adultery. The woman got caught in adultery, but they only caught the woman. They didn't catch the man, right? So adultery is always catching because people are not going to go and say, "Hey, I'm sleeping. This is punishable by death, and I'm going to sleep outside of my marriage," right? Um, but I digress. Like I said, I might talk about it more in full if it's requested, but that's why I don't like the NIV. This is the only like mistranslation I've seen from it, but it was enough where I was like, yeah, I don't like the NIV. If my computer can go back, yeah. So NIV is bottom of. I prefer you read a different one for that reason. I think I'm just being biased, but it rubbed me the wrong way. NLT, I don't know much about to be honest. So let's check here. NLT is close to paraphrase, so you're gonna go at the bottom. I like LSB. LSB is based off of the NASB, which is, well, you can see it here, right? And LSB is consistent with translating like, hell as hell properly, Sheol as Sheol, servant slave. It's the most consistent so far. It's not 100%. None of the translations are 100%, but I like LSB for that reason, right? The message, yeah. I mean, like the message is basically kind of how my channel is currently, where I kind of just go and talk about the Bible, paraphrasing it, which is why my channel shouldn't even be a replacement for the Bible. it's really here just for like adding conversation about the good news and stuff and things I find interesting. But um, my cousin gave me a good example where it's like, um, if your friend you had a friend and let's just call him Johnny, right? And I tell you about Johnny, and I'm like, yeah, Johnny, me and Johnny did this, me and Johnny did that, and eventually you get the idea in your head that you're best friends with Johnny too because I told you about Johnny, even though Johnny never knew you, right? That's kind of how it is when you consume the Bible through commentary, like the message, my channel, like only, anyways. If you're reading it alongside, like a different translation, that's fine, but I don't think you should consume the Bible simply through commentary, right? You should read God's word for yourself. Um, NSB, I'll probably put in not bad because I never read NSB, but it's based off LSB, or LSB is based off NSB, NASB. I can't speak, sorry. So for that reason, it probably being not bad. And lastly, CSB. I read CSB for a little, but I didn't actually go through all of it because then I swapped to LSB. Um, where's CSB? I don't see it. Let's Google that really quickly. CSB Bible type. CSB is closer to the NASB. Nice. So, for that reason, I don't know too much about it, but I'll just put it in the last tier if not bad. So, yeah, that's my ranking of the different translations and why I like them. Like I said, ultimately, the best translation is whatever translation gets you to read the Bible. Um, Even if it's the message, I really pray that it wouldn't be the message, but like, even if it's the message, um, whatever gets you to read the Bible is the best version, right? So take this with a grain of salt. It's just my opinion, and my opinion is flux to change too. Like I might, I don't know, see something else and get triggered about like the CSB, and then it goes into I prefer you read another. But yeah, thanks you guys for watching. Have a blessed day, and God bless. Bye.